Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
Well, pet owners, we have a great conversation coming up. Of course, I know you have heard of Dr. Ridgway before. We actually featured his book quite a few years ago called The Truth About Dog and Cat Treatments and Anomalies. And he is, he's up, I think, Dr. Ridgway, are you in Orlando?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Yeah, I thought you are. So, thank you for coming on the show. I tell everybody last week he was scheduled to come, and because of some technical problems, we didn't get him on. So we have him on now. Well, thank you very much, and thank you for writing, coming up in May, our article on Cushing's disease, something that my doggy has. So I don't know what you wanted to talk about, but that could be a good subject, because I hear other people been complaining about their dogs.
Well, it's not uncommon, but it's not something that happens every day. It starts out, probably the thing that people would notice most would be polydipsia, polyuria, or drinking more water and urinating more. And that would probably be the first sign that you would notice.
Well, let me ask you a question, though. What does urinating more mean? How often does a dog urinate if it's not having a problem?
I can tell you, you will identify it because you have to take the dog out more or whatever you do, and you don't have any trouble identifying when you have the problem.
Well, but let me just explain that then. I didn't think I had a problem with our little Charlie. I could take him out 4 or 5 hours in between, and he never had any accidents. So I didn't know that there was a problem. The way they said it, in a normal checkup, of course, they take a urine. First, they took the blood test, and then they said there was something they saw in the blood, and then they made me bring in the urine. And that's when they said that they thought he had Cushing's disease. But I haven't seen him anything else.
That you make a good point. Just because the signs are X, Y, and Z, it does not mean that every patient exhibits those signs. You know, it's just like people with heart attack. They have pain in the jaw and the arms and all that, and some people have no pain at all. And so you just signs are just one of those things that happens that doesn't occur in every patient, you know, and so you have to be vigilant and look at other things. I've seen animals that come in that have Cushing's that have calcium deposits as big as your hand in the skin, and I always wonder how come somebody lets the condition get that advanced. But that's another story.
Okay, so what we're doing now is they put him on medication, a minimal amount in the morning and at night, a different quantity in the morning and then a little stronger at night. And now I'm going to go back next week, and they're going to do another blood test to see, because then they might put him on something stronger. But he's doing wonderfully. I don't really notice a difference, actually, but do I have to just believe the veterinarian or I mean, you know, it's like, you know, I mean, I don't know tell us what happens inside. Tell us about that disease, can you?
There's, each animal has an adrenal gland. It's by the kidney. And what happens is that the adrenal gland gets larger. It either has cancer or it has what we call hypertrophy, or it gets larger, and so it secretes more steroid than usual. That's how come you have an animal that has a need for an exogenous steroid, and you inject it or take it by mouth, you cause a problem, Addisonian disease, by depressing the adrenals. So in this case, the adrenal gets larger, and it produces more adrenocorticotropic hormones, and the body is not accustomed to having that much steroid into it, and so it starts to react to the increased amount of adrenocorticotropic hormones that are being secreted by the adrenal glands. It's not. I can tell you that in some cases that I've seen, the signs of a Cushing's is not obvious, and you have to run a particular test, an adrenocorticotropic suppression test, to see if the dog actually has a problem with the adrenal glands. And there's a surgical procedure. In some animals, they actually go in and take out an adrenal gland because it's so bad and the medicine doesn't work. So, there's all kinds of things that happen that what one patient experiences is not what necessarily another is going to experience. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does. And my question now is there a disease like this for humans?
Absolutely. I don't know if you know it or not, but Kennedy had Addisonian disease, which is a depression of the adrenal glands.
Oh, that's what his disease was.
That's right, Addisonian. Yep. Absolutely. People have adrenals that are attached to the kidneys in the human, and it's on the anterior pole of the kidney. And the same thing can happen in pets and people.
So, Dr. Ridgway, so if it's working, so he could just be on this medication the rest of his life, but he could be okay then, right?
Well, that's a difficult question to answer because I don't know.
Right.
And you don't know what the response is going to be. See, the drug, well, the whole purpose of the drug is to cause that adrenal gland to shrink so that it doesn't secrete the steroid. Well, how do you know that drug is going to decrease the size of the adrenal? You don't. And so you just have to wait and see what happens.
So is that why they're going to give him another test again to see if it's working?
I would think that they would, but
they are. I have an appointment next week. I hate to do this to you. I'm getting all this free advice, but I trust you so much, and I know that now in your book, I didn't really read about Cushing's. I didn't get it. Did you put anything in your book about that?
You know why I didn't?
Why?
People can't treat that with over-the-counter drugs.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's not in the book. It shouldn't be in the book.
Okay, but I have a big question for you now, because I don't know if you've gotten into this, but with the new cannabis, not the medical, there's a cannabis, and they have it for pets. I was wondering, because it seems like it helps so many pets now. Do you know much? Have you done any experimentation about the marijuana plant not taking the strong part?
Yeah, marijuana in dogs is a no-no. And the idea that because people use marijuana, that you can use it in a dog or a cat is crazy. Different animals respond to different things differently, and the response to marijuana in a dog is negative. It's not a positive thing.
But wait, I'm not talking about the marijuana part. I'm talking about the TCB. I'm sorry.
All I can tell you is I don't know anything about the TCB. If I said anything, it would be conjecture on my part.
Okay. I didn't know if you knew or not.
I'm not going to touch that with it.
Right. You may want to do some investigation because you're a smart guy, and it seems like there are anecdotal information about dogs who've had, they're limping around and they start on this, and it seems like it helps them. So it might be interesting for you because I know that you're always wanting to know the very latest, and I would respect your opinion.
Yeah, well, I haven't read anything about it, and I haven't seen anything in the literature to indicate that it's a positive thing.
Could I send you something when I get it?
I haven't read anything about it that says it's a negative thing either. So, there just hasn't been anything in the literature, and it may be that this is homeopathic experimentation thing that
right.
And so you don't know what's happening.
Right. Well, if I find out stuff, I'm going to just email it to you. So, because I've been thinking, working with, we have a lot of people advertising now. And of course, a lot of it is not, the medical marijuana is something different, but there are other parts of the plant that don't require licensing by a physician, and it's becoming very popular. So I'm definitely going to talk to you about it because it might be something really important for you to know. And let me ask you this: are you still working at
No.
Oh, you're not. So you're writing
retired
books.
for 3 years.
Yeah, I knew you were. Do you like being retired?
It's different. It's I think retirement is like a brand new job. You need to learn to be retired. You don't, because I hear a lot of negative comments about retirement. Oh, retirement isn't what you thought it was going to be, blah, 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 blah. And I think it's because people think, I don't know what they think, but, you have to make activity. You can't sit around and it becomes real boring after a while just sitting around doing nothing. And so you have to do things, volunteer, get involved some way.
So what are you doing? Are you writing? No, I know what you do. You wrote books about something else.
I've written about 15 books.
Right. In the time that you've been retired?
Yes.
Wow, that is fabulous. Why don't you tell us about some of those books?
Well, the purpose of the books is to help somebody to achieve a level of wealth. And whether anybody really does what the book says is another thing. It's really simple, but people don't do simple things. And it's a decision to be made by the individual. You want to be poor or you want to be wealthy. And you can be either one. It's just a matter of how you think. And, there's been several studies about poor people and wealthy people. And they have taken the money away from the wealthy person, and in time he becomes wealthy again. But you give a lot of money to a poor person, and they become poor again because they know, that's how they know to live. And so the thing that bothers me about the people that win the lottery, first thing they do is you hear them saying that, they're splurging, they're buying all kinds of things. I have never heard anybody say, I took care of my financial future. I don't know if they have $500,000. If they invested $300,000 or $400,000, they'd be fixed for life. But they don't do that, and so that's the purpose of the book. I don't know if anybody ever even reads them, but that's what it's all about. That's the reason I write them. I'm trying to help somebody achieve a level of wealth.
But you said that you've written a lot of them. Are they all on the same topic?
Well, they all cover the same kind of subject, but I approach it different. I'll just give you an example here. Let's see. First one I did was discussing your dollars over a cup of coffee. Another one was called Getting to Financial Success. Another one was How Come I'm Always Out of Money. And another one was called, let's see here, I got to get it out. Investing in Yourself, and one, My Money. It's a matter of what you do with it, and Destroying Rags to Achieve Riches, and You Have $3 Million. Now what? I had a request to write that one. She wanted me, what if you have $3 million? Now what? So I've never experienced having $3 million, so that's conjecture on my part.
Well, wait, I have to ask you a question. So how do you get these books out there for people to read?
Well, I've done a lot of advertising, and that doesn't do any good.
You do seminars,
not in my
maybe?
Experience.
Do you do seminars?
I don't, no. I haven't done any seminars. And I had a publisher, How to Treat Your Dogs and Cats with Over-the-Counter Drugs.
Right.
Well, they called and wanted to revise that, so I have a revised edition of that. And we added 2 books together. You know, I had one called a companion edition, and everybody seemed to think that that one was the original book because it had the same title, and nobody read the words companion edition. And so we put it all in one book. It's called How to Treat Your Dogs and Cats with Over-the-Counter Drugs, revised edition. And it's brand new. It is actually, the ink's not dry yet.
Well, congratulations. So you're not bored now that you learned how to be a retiree, huh?
Well, I've been very busy writing, but, you know, these books aren't selling, and they cost a lot to get them published, so my writing days are over.
Well, maybe what we ought to do is you ought to take one more shot, and we ought to feature a lot of them in Boomer Times, you know, a whole bunch of them, and because you've done a lot of work. It'd be a shame to not do something and get them out there in some way. We ought to talk about this. It costs me a lot of money. Yeah. And I'm on a retired budget, and I don't have that kind of money anymore. Yeah. Well, so you didn't take your own lesson from it, I guess. Well, I have been able to survive financially. I'm not worried about that part. It's the ability to spend $1,000 or $2,000 for advertisement. It's not cheap. Yeah, I know. It costs a lot of money. Yeah. And, you know, $1,000 out of my budget makes that month real tight. Yeah, but, you know, I have to say this to all the authors. All of us, everyone who's written books, we have boxes in our closets with books. I know my husband passed away about 1.5 years ago, and he has been selling his books, Air Force Cowboy, and but there's a couple of other books that didn't sell much, and they're sitting in the closet, must have 100, and, you know, they need to get out somehow, and that's why I think we've been pretty successful with authors. What it is you work so hard to write these books, and people just need to either have seminars where they can do it or join. You may think of some organization that would like to sponsor the book for you and, you know, and maybe pay you a small amount of money and then you give them away, or I don't know. I would love to talk to you just to help you in some ways that give you some ideas, because you've been a good guy. You know, you've been a good guy. Yeah. But I'm so. You know, you can't afford to do that. The cost of the publication, easy, $1,500, you know. Right. Well, every month I put out much more than that to produce Boomer Times. So that's I understand that. Yeah, I do understand talk about publishing, right? But my husband and I, if you don't have any return and you're putting out $1,500 every time you turn around, yep, you can do that forever. I know that. Yeah. Well, you have a big resource though of what you've written, and it would be wonderful to figure out how to get people. What's how many pages in your books about? Well, they vary in size. Some are close to 150, 103. They're not real big because the editor said nobody wants to read a brick. Right. No, you're right. They should be small. A lot of little books are 100 pages, 125 pages, and people love them. I just got a book, forget what it's called now, that they wanted to run it as a book of the month, and it's small, but oh goodness, it is just so chock full of good tips, and our book of the month for this upcoming May is called Poor Teddy, and it's a wonderful woman who rescued this dog. She actually, you'd love her. She works for the Humane Society, and she's always getting dogs, but this dog came to her, and it was filled with all the worst things a dog could have, and they took months to get it, you know, up to par, and it still has some problems. I think it recently passed away, but she wrote this book called Poor Teddy, and she had great graphics, and so we're featuring it as our May book of the month. And you'll see it when, I know you always get a copy of our magazine, right? Because you write for it every month. Yep. Yeah, so it's, well, you know, it's interesting that you had quite a life taking care of dogs and cats and other things. And I would think you would miss that.
Well, you know what? For 10 years, I did surgery. I did about 30 to 35 surgeries every day. Every day.
My gosh.
And,
Gosh.
That's a lot of surgery. And you know what? I don't miss that one little bit. You know, I did it so much, and yeah, it's a routine. I actually dreamed about it.
Yeah, I'm sure, because that was hard work. But you must miss. Do you have dogs or cats yourself?
We have one cat, a male cat.
Ah. Oh, that's very interesting. I would think you'd have a lot, dogs and just all these pets, because you could take such good care of them.
Well, there's no such thing as a free pet.
That's true. No. I know that, but they give off so much more than money. Oh my goodness. I don't know what I'd do without Charlie. Oh my heavens.
We keep it limited to one. We had 2 cats once, and we had hair all over the house.
Well,
one's enough.
Yeah, I guess that is true. But I want to get back to this whole thing on. I want to go back to the Cushings, if I may, because I always bring Charlie to the radio show, and he's sitting here, and he's a fantastic dog. So I guess we'll see what happens. But the medication, just keep him on that, and then let's say that it's doing good. Can he just be on it for the rest of his life?
You know what? I'm going to let your doctor tell you that.
Okay.
I don't see the pet.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Okay.
And for me to jump in the middle of a...
Yeah, that's true. That's unfair of me to ask you. I know. Sorry.
It's really not ethical to do that.
Okay. I know. We have all these anecdotes, but I have to tell you, he is a wonderful, wonderful dog. And at first when they said he had Cushing's disease, I said, oh, look, he's so good. Maybe I should just do nothing. But I thought that's not fair to the dog.
Right.
So, right. So I'm going back after they take his blood again, and we'll see what that shows. And I'll,
I worked at the shelter for 10 years.
Yeah.
And, you can come to the shelter and see what happens when people don't treat anything.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing. It just, the condition of some of those pets that come in there is just atrocious. I just can't believe that people let animals get in the shape that they allow them to get into.
Yeah.
But they do.
Yeah, you said something that was really right. It's a big responsibility, even if it isn't, even forget if the monetary part, which is important, but the responsibility of making sure that your pet...
Here's what I believe.
What?
They have what we call hoarders. They just keep getting more and more dogs and cats and more dogs and cats, and then next thing they know, that they get way beyond the ability to financially take care of it.
Yeah.
Their heart is in the right position.
Yeah.
But their finances doesn't go along with what they think. And so I can tell you story after story of some of the hoarders of pets and the poor conditions that these animals ended up in. I know that they believe that they were doing right at the beginning.
Yeah.
But financially they can't handle it. And then the next thing you know, they fed these pets and they've watered them, and they get tired of it, and then they stop doing it.
Oh,
so
my.
The pets aren't fed, they're not watered.
Oh.
The dishes are not cleaned.
Oh.
It turns a real mess. And, it takes a battalion of people to take care of pets.
Yes.
When you're talking about 200 or 300 pets,
Wait a minute. You're talking about people who have 200 pets?
They have more than that.
You mean like they have a lot of acres, and they think they could just bring them there, and then whatever happens, happens? Oh, that's not right. I agree with you.
Well, we had one that had 100 birds, and I don't remember how many cats and how many dogs.
Oh, my.
And the pictures that they took were of the filth inside the house.
Oh, my.
The guy turned the house over to his pets, and he never cleaned anything. And it's just a real mess. I go back to, I think, and I don't know, that their heart is in the right position when they start.
Right.
But the problem is, this thing gets so out of hand, they can't afford, and they get tired of all the care that's necessary for so many pets.
Well, I'm going to end this conversation on a very positive note. When I first had dogs years ago, you couldn't take them anywhere. You had to keep them, in a house. But now, restaurants outside restaurants, they bring water for your dog. You can take. I actually go to doctors, and they love dogs, and they let you bring them into the room with you. And I mean, dogs, especially. I don't think people take their cats out, but dogs really are a lot more accepted now. They used to be in Europe, but now people love their dogs so much, and they take them, and the shop owners and restaurants seem to be okay with it.
Ma'am, a few years ago, you wouldn't let the dog in the house. Now you buy clothes for them.
Right.
And they sleep in bed with you.
Right, exactly. Well, that was a good positive note. Well, Dr. Ridgway, thank you. I'm so glad you came on. I'd like to have you more often, and I'll keep you up to date on this Cushing's disease, but thanks for your great article coming up in May, and I really appreciate all the articles that you do write.
I got another one I think you're going to like. It's called Death by Rabies.
Okay, send it to us for June. I love it. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.